down. So I think that might not be a strategy they go back to more, but I mean, if he gets the Jayce, I don't see any reason to not play topside.
Of course, as we start to move through the bans here, Syndra has been taken away, the rest of the bans remaining just about the same. Kennen, the only one now left up that was not banned out, or that was banned out in the previous game, and ANX starting with the first pick, Caitlyn. But before we get into the thick of this discussion, remember you can tweet at LoL Esports, hashtag AskTheCasters. Let us know what your questions are. We'll try to answer a bunch of them. If the games continue to be one-sided, which I sincerely hope that they aren't, we'll have plenty of times for any and all questions. But Caitlyn first pick coming in here. Do you think they're going to get their hands on the Zyra as well?
I'd be surprised. I'm not sure if it's in Vander's wheelhouse, but I don't think you want to give Caitlyn Zyra over necessarily. But that's just me. I mean, you can counter it with Karma. Ezreal, as we saw, was a pretty common matchup. But I know that Forgiven likes that being in control a lot more, so.
Well, of course, we did see the fantastic performance from Vander on the Zyra in Game 1. Nearly perfect scoreline, 5-0 and 11. It looks like it will be the priority here. We heard in the soundbite, Odo asked if he could play Maokai. But instead he's going to play Jayce.
I think Maokai is actually fine against double AP team compositions, but nonetheless, so far we have similar champions being picked as last game. H2K again with Zyra and with Jayce.
Yeah, if I ever forget what Vander played in Game 1 or anything like that again, you can just slap me.
You're like, I don't know if he can play it. I'm like,
I was too busy photoshopping Ryu's face being green, spaced out. But yeah, not surprised to see the draft actually going very much the same way, because on the side of ANX, you can argue that if that like horrible misplay didn't happen on the top side, which snowballed the Jayce out of control, I think there were some good things in their draft, and I can see them kind of wanting to go back and try that again without giving away that massive advantage on the top side.
Of course, this once again the Gnar matchup picked up, so hoping, pretty confident that same disastrous thing won't happen on the side. Now, interestingly enough, too, taking a step away from the Olaf, you can see LS's face just light up with joy as Elise will now be the jungle priority coming in for ANX.
Yeah, banded away from himself.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, now they actually, I mean, what are they going to do with such a bad jungler, you know? Without Olaf, I just don't know what any team
I'm just really concerned that the viewers won't understand your absolute hatred for Olaf and will think that they're like,
do you want me to explain it to you?
Yeah, give me the rundown.
You want me to give you the rundown?
Yes.
All right, the champion is heavily reliant on your opponent's misplaying or overextending and basically punishing mistakes. And if you don't do that and you go into the mid game and Olaf is 0-0-0 with even farm with a lot of other junglers, he's useless. Outside of his ultimate, he's just terrible. He's not as good as Lee Sin. Lee Sin has the insect. That's always something that's powerful. But Rek'Sai has flash knockup.
But he runs so fast.
Yeah, he runs fast. Yeah, he runs straight to his death.
Or to murdering your face off, as we saw Peanut do. One or the other.
Yeah, if he's fed, I mean, you can't deny it. If he is ahead, you cannot deny how strong he is, but I think I see what you're saying. If he doesn't get ahead, not a very good champion. Other junglers potentially more flexible in even scenarios. But now we see the full power of the ANX composition revealed. No Karma in the bottom lane to match the Zyra. This time they're taking a different approach and they're going with the Alistar for Likkrit, but once again, Kira opting for the Syndra here.
Yeah, it looks like they're kind of going a lot more towards a pick comp. The Elise Syndra is a pretty common like gank mid lane, try and poop on that lane, and then snowball elsewhere. Alistar as well, one of the best roaming supports, so maybe they're going to try and get out of the lane. But once again, it just leads to the Vladimir pick for RYU, who's one of the best champions for avoiding stuff like that in terms of having his pool to dodge out of skills.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how RYU does on his first Vladimir performance.
Hey, I didn't say that. Say he picks it again. Screw you, Tsepha.
I'm just giving you a hard time, man.
Yeah,
it's all right. Lucian does come in. So Lucian, not a champion we've seen too much picked over the course of the tournament, kind of fallen by the wayside. I want to get your thoughts specifically on Lucian, and then also Lucian versus Caitlyn.
I think it's hard. I think it's really hard, especially given the rest of the team comp that you see out of ANX, where they have the Syndra who can punish if the Lucian ever gets too close or even just eats a stun. I think it's very difficult to play Lucian in this meta, and especially with the picks that Albus Nox Luna secured for themselves.
Interesting to see, too. Forgiven, of course, it is kind of his namesake as far as champions go. The Caitlyn, Tristana coming out a little bit towards the end of the season, but the Lucian, team's always scared of it, so frequently banned against him. But once again, remember, you can tweet your questions for us, for LS, for MarkZ, about Olaf, about anything, but preferably mid lane focused at LoL Esports with the hashtag AskTheCasters. We'll get to those as the game unfolds. After watching Game 1, I know we got predictions coming in from the analyst desk. is this just the 3-0 for H2K? Do you think ANX have a shot at getting this back, especially if they don't make the same fumbles in the early game?
I'm personally a little hesitant to say that I think ANX can come back. I think they have a couple players who are good enough to match up individually against H2K, but I think even if they go even into the mid game during laning phase, it's still in H2K's favor because they do play those mid game situations pretty well. I think that we saw in the first game H2K can get like a little crazy when they have such a big lead, but a lot of teams end up playing that way, so I don't really hold that against them, and I think they can play clean when they need to.
Gonna have to see if they can play clean. They, you know, as you said, made some mistakes in the previous game. Can they keep it consistent? Can they keep it together? But once again, this is the mid lane focus. This is Kira versus RYU. This is Syndra versus Vlad. Gentlemen, is this an explosive matchup? What is this gonna look like? You laughed.
Well, the Vladimir has a pretty good advantage given that the Elise dynamic to the 2v2 mid jungle is basically irrelevant because of the Sanguine pool. So it's not like Elise can just land a cocoon, Syndra combos it, or it's not like Syndra can land a stun and then Elise combos it. So RYU's just going to be able to live. I think that the most explosiveness will come in the bottom lane. Fortunately for Smurf this game, Jayce is going to have a more difficult time actually coordinating kills against him because he can just go into a defensive mode and it's very hard to coordinate a gank if he's just turtling underneath his tower.
So why is that change from the last game coming in? Does he just know now that he needs to play defensive? What is the difference between the two matchups in terms of Gnar versus Jayce?
Well, blue side Gnar is just able to basically be underneath the turret. That does make Odoamne have an easier time, aiming his skill shots, obviously, if he wants to try to poke Smurf underneath the turret. But it is a much more difficult area to gank, given that Jankos has to go into Elise's blue side jungle. Which can get a little bit dangerous.
See a little bit of early trading here. Start is going to be Force of Will. Interesting to see. What are your thoughts on early Syndra itemization? Why are we seeing the W come out here over the Q in the early levels? It does have a much longer cooldown.
I'm honestly not too sure why you would start W over Q. I didn't think that was super standard. I mean, you can get the push either way because Vlad's Q obviously not AoE. And I guess if you're thinking that you don't have to spam it quite as much, you could do it for that reason. But I thought it was much more common to see Q start, especially since we didn't see any cheesy jungle stuff. I could definitely see it in a situation like that where you're trying to mess with the other guy, like stealing his blue or something crazy like that. But the fact that it was just basically lane, going straight to lane. But I mean, like it's not too big of a difference. You pick up the Q level 2. I'm not exactly sure why you would opt for W level 1, but he did.
W level 1 deals a little bit more damage. That's basically it, and maybe the
slow, right?
Yeah, the slow enables you to
Auto
combo autos in. I guess that's the only real logic behind it.
Of course, not too impactful as not a whole lot happens here in the level 1 or the level 2 at this point. RYU playing very back, and Syndra getting him a decent amount of respect here. Doesn't look like she's looking for too many aggressive trades.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for Syndra to like take over this matchup without snowballing. I mean, she basically trades her mana for Vlad's health, and Vlad's usually pretty happy to make that trade-off. You see here, Syndra's already getting pretty low on mana, but, I mean, RYU still has his pot and Doran shield, as well as the fact that he just sustains up through his abilities, so it's a lot of Vladimir getting chunked, but Syndra not being able to actually completely punish.
Kira's actually playing the lane really poorly. This is a way that you could actually play the lane if you have, like, a Rek'Sai or a Lee Sin. And you're able to get that blue buff. We saw, some Syndras do that this tournament, but if you don't have the luxury of actually getting your blue buff early on, I think playing out the lane like this is actually really poor because what is the point of playing a Syndra into a champion like Vladimir and then just shoving them underneath the turret and giving them endless free farm? It doesn't really make any sense because you have no kill potential.
Kira now ghosting out to safety. So I'm curious to see, we do see the blue buff donated. We're not going to see this game because of the Elise, but how does this play into Syndra's back timings? When does Syndra need to back? Because it looks like she's going to have to soon, just due to the lack of mana here.
I mean, usually you're looking for something like Lost Chapter. Sometimes you can go other things, but generally Lost Chapter. Vladimir's are usually going to get some kind of boots to dodge, as well as trying to get into their cowl as their first purchase. I was talking to Frog, and he actually was a big fan of going the Merc Treads first on Vlad, saying that not only are you a little bit faster, but you get out of stun, so you can't get chain CC'd if you ever do mess up. But I think generally it's MR item of some kind first for Vlad, in Lost Chapter trying to get into Morello's for Syndra.
Moving in now, RYU starting to take a little bit more control of the lane as the cooldowns start to drop. Interesting that we're seeing so much here. Checking in on the lanes across the board. Not too many major CS differences, but RYU has absolutely taken control here. LS, when we talked earlier just about some poor wave management from Kira, I mean, is this just a product of him being too aggressive in the early trades?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like he's very adept at playing the laning phase with Syndra without just spamming his abilities. So it's pretty poor play overall. And now, I mean, his recall is going to grant him a lost chapter. But the problem here is, and you can see the gold right now, is Vladimir's going to be able to eat this wave, and then Vladimir's going to be able to stay for the next wave and get a Spectre's Cowl. So inherently, Kira is already massive. Oh, okay, well, RYU can just decide to recall right now, which I don't think that's a very wise decision. He was 100 gold off Spectre's Cowl. I don't think there was any real reason, especially because this is a cannon wave. It's very easy to just CS this wave because you're virtually gank immune with that Sanguinarian pool, and he has both of his summoners up. So pretty poor play by both of them.
If it came down to a gank coming mid lane, do you think it would be worth blowing, let's say, Ghost or Flash in order to secure that Cowl purchase? How important is the early Cowl?
Well, you have to know that they don't really have any vision on Lee Sin. So even if Vladimir just simply goes into the left side river, they have to respect it. They can't just chase it blind. And then on top of that, Kira's not really going to actually have the damage to kill a full HP Vladimir. And the cocoon is never going to hit. So, like I said before, I mean, the decision by both of them was pretty poor.
Yeah, I mean, RYU has to mess up at that point to risk actually dying by staying for that greedier purchase. I mean, the nice thing about this back timing is you do get a little bit more vision coverage, so you are able to get your pink ward. If you're just going back on 1200, you have to go in that cowl and that's it. Here he gets refillable as well, so it's a little bit weaker of a purchase, definitely in terms of the lane, and he's losing his pink right away anyway, so pretty hard to say it was worth it.
And now vision control goes over to the bottom side. You do see a regular green ward, or rather the yellow trinket ward placed there. So at least a little bit of vision for safety and for RYU. But Kira now with the lost chapter should be able to spam a little bit more. Second blue buff is just less than a minute out, but Jankos already looks like he's going to set up the invade for it. Look for the fight. What goes up must come down.
Oh, looks like Jankos got that.
Yeah. All right, Kira moves over, but they've spotted him. So now contesting the blue buff. Do you feel like this one should go to ANX? Well, here comes the fight.
Get back over that wall. I mean, they're just going to get this blue buff for free. It's not too bad, but the loss of the flash on the Elise kind of limits her playmaking. Her flash cocoon is one of her most threatening tools, and the fact that she no longer has that means it's going to be hard for her to convert on a play. The only other play that's really easily available for ANX at this point is some kind of flash setup, probably bot lane. Could go top as well, but probably not mid.
Interesting to see what the next decision is going to be, but we have questions now coming in for Twitter. We have two, actually, from @NASupportMain. First one, as support when warding for mid laners, which bush is better to pink? Is it the pixel brush or the bottom side brush?
That's pretty difficult. That's really dependent on who is your mid laner, who is your jungler, and what is the game flow.
All right, well, right now, the game flow appears to be destruction in favor of H2K as Odo is going to pick up first blood, but that's a lot of damage onto him. Headbutt pull doing a decent amount, but in comes the safeguard, and Kira is actually going to pick up that kill in the end, but Jankos wants more. Of course, no ult available. RYU on the side, flashes in for the Tides of Blood. Is he going to pull out? Not quite yet. Does still have it up and available, waiting for the charged cube. Well timed, but Smurf knocks him into the wall. The chain CC, aMiracle is up and well, but Zyra is simply too strong at this stage of the game. Vander pulling out a double kill, 2-0-2 for the H2K support. So, getting back to the discussion earlier, pixel brush, bottom side brush. I am curious now, especially with RYU hilariously in the lead. What are the situation? In this game, where would you recommend the ward go? Let's say with an allied Lee Sin on the side of H2K.
Okay, so I guess if you're Vander, then you want the wards behind Red Brush, but you can also, given how far ahead you are and how likely it is that Jankos is able to move aggressively into Elise's jungle, you can also get it to the left of Wraiths. Because you don't really need any vision on the left-hand side. You're able to just basically have one pink ward, and that basically shuts down all gank opportunity from Elise from the left-hand side. So all vision just needs to be around the right-hand side, because that's going to be the primary focus of aggression, given these team comps.
Interesting. Now, Mark, as we look at the back half of this play, what do you think went wrong here for ANX?
It just like wasn't very clean. We were talking about how we expected Elise to go bottom or top. The reason is because he has gank set up in those lanes in terms of the fact that Gnar can start off with a flash as well as Alistar, and we saw that this play started off with that flash on Unforgiven, but they didn't get any of that like disgusting chain CC that you see come out of that combo often, where it's Caitlyn, Alistar, you get the flash, call, the trap underneath, keep going, and it was just too easily countered by H2K. They were there. They weren't that far behind on the play. And the fact that they didn't just kill Forgiven outright made it pretty easy to get out of there. So if it would start out with like Forgiven basically dead, then it'd be fine. But the TP came in from Odoamne, well-timed, and Jankos was already down there, and RYU came in at the back half of the play. And the fact that the play wasn't already blown up in their favor, Vlad is excellent in those situations for cleanup.
Yep.
So
something else that went wrong there was they didn't have Olaf.
Yeah.
I think that was actually the deciding factor.
Yeah, I mean, imagine Olaf just chain axing down Forgiven there.
Right.
look, if I wanted someone to meme, I would have brought Pulse back. You're who we analyze, LS. Give us the info.
All right. Well, I mean, at this point, mid lane is basically over.
Oh god.
Top lane looks to be pretty over too.
Top lane's pretty over. At this point, Syndra doesn't do anything. The 2v2 dynamic of Syndra Elise couldn't really do anything against the Vladimir anyway, unless your Elise was going to be hyper aggressive, or you know, your other lanes were capable of winning on their own. And I mean, we saw that with SK Telecom actually. Faker was able to just play hyper aggressive inside of a Vladimir's face and just keep him underneath turret the entire game and out-farm him. But that's not going to be the case here. So even though Kira can probably continue to get some CS leads, it's about to reach the stage where Vladimir can begin dirty farming, which is farming the Wraith camps. And so Kira's just going to fall further and further behind as the scaling commences.
This seems pretty grim already. Kira looks maybe a little bit more comfortable in this mid lane matchup now, but just continues to do the same thing, which is spamming out that those abilities, trying to get the damage down, but still no blue buff to back him up. However, in the meantime, Rift Herald does drop, giving that one over.
You know what the definition of insanity is?
Doing the same thing over and again.
Expecting a different result. Yeah.
That's only Einstein's definition.
Yeah,
all right?
shout out to our boy,
my boy Albert.
Letting us know what's up. Maybe Albus Nox are familiar with the
Doesn't seem so.
Didn't reach Russia.
The CIS, sir.
CIS.
There's
some Ukrainian players, right?
Yep.
So the big thing for this game is the fact that Jankos has basically followed Pstejos everywhere he's tried to go and countered every play he tried to make. That double kill that just happened on the top side was actually started off by Albus Nox Luna, and Jankos came in and helped countergank it once again. Same thing that basically happened on the bot side, and the fact that H2K has these kind of winning side lanes sets it up so that as long as Jankos is there to cover the play and it doesn't go horribly wrong where like someone instantly dies, like once again we saw in the bot play, it's very easy for Elise to counter this kind of stuff, and he has such a high impact in that counter gang situation.
Now we can see almost just like magic, every time we turn our attention to a lane, it turns into a farm fest and another lane blows up. And this time it's bottom lane, although not a whole lot coming out. Vander will make it out with a sliver of life, as will aMiracle. And Kira continues to try to trade mana for health here, but RYU is just healing up.
It honestly, it just doesn't make any sense. The guy is doing the same thing over and over and over for like 10 minutes straight, and he expects something to change. I actually don't even know what I'm watching at this point.
League of Legends, LS. This is League of Legends.
You have to wonder how many times he's actually played this matchup, because it doesn't. It looks like he's like trying to learn it as he's well, I mean, we know that he just played it the game before, but that clearly didn't go very well.
Not working out too well overall. Gives us a chance, though, to get a Twitter question, or for Odoamne to land an empowered shock blast here. Oh, there's a bot lane gank, too. Looks like everyone's going to die here as the flash kick comes in from Jankos, and as Odoamne sneaks along the side to pressure out this tower. Kira has very little mana. He's going to get the disengage off, however. Moves burn. Tower seems set to fall. PvPStejos is here, but the bot lane is falling apart in the meantime.
Hit me with that Twitter question.
Got it. At LOL Stats Guy. LOL Stats Guy asks, is there another potential counter versus Syndra besides Vladimir?
In terms of 1v1 and not needing a ton of help, like there's a Brilliant Soul, and it's not really a counter. It's kind of like you just avoid it. But other than those, there's not many laners who can just handle the amount of pressure she can put out consistently. Like if any, there's a lot of matchups that like are kind of close, and then something goes wrong, and Syndra destroys them. And Vlad is the safest among those, as well as being a huge mid-game team fighter, which Syndra's not as great at if she's not already ahead. So that's a lot of the reason you see Vlad as opposed to these other picks.
Yep. Syndra mid lanes are generally 1v the jungler. Well, I mean, in the sense that if Syndra falls behind, she does have one of the worst recoveries of meta mid laners. So if you're looking to beat Syndra, generally it's via the assistance of your jungler, and when she falls really hard.
Or in this case, the assistance of your top laner. So flashes in with the two of the skies. Little hammer combo there. Sturdy.
There was no water spout. Why did that spider go up?
All I'm gonna say is I feel for Kira right now, because Kira's looking a lot like when I tried to play Smash Bros against LS earlier and just got absolutely destroyed. So there's some empathy going on here. This is not what you want.
Struggle.
The struggle.
Alice is containing himself, trying not to bash me.
Trying to.
Let it go, man. Last time you're gonna see this guy.
That's true. I'll just lie and tell people that I was the winner. I wasn't. All right, got another Twitter question here. Sefsil asks, what's your opinion on having a big champion pool? Others say it's good to main just a few. Why don't we hit this at the competitive level first? How important is a large champion pool competitive?
Having a large champion pool competitive is really, really nice because it generally means that you can't be banned out. And if they are going to allocate any bans to certain champions, it's more so going to be stylistic or like comps. So that's always really nice. The bigger your champion pool, as long as you're able to actually pilot all of those champions, is pretty important.
Yeah, so I think just to throw a number on it, I think 5 to 7 is a pretty good one. Usually you see around that many meta picks that are important. There's usually 1 to 2 OPs that you need to play to force the enemy to ban those on the red side, so you can't get these really wonky drafts where you're banning Syndra on blue side or something like that. And then from there, there's a couple comfort strong picks in the meta. So you see a lot of people playing Victor, things like that I'd say are more like not necessary picks, but really strong, and you should play those as opposed to something like the Syndra, Vlad, or really in Soul, I'd say are like the big 3 that you need to be playing right now, on top of whatever else you have in the pocket. And then for solo queue, I'm personally believe just like play like 1 to 3 things. Just get good at something, man.
Yep. For solo queue, yeah, definitely just 1 to 3. I think is actually the perfect number.
Now, Alice, I know you've released a lot of tier lists in the past, a lot of content for solo queue players. Now I'm curious, looking at the way the Worlds meta has unfolded, who do you think is, out of the meta mid laners at Worlds, who do you feel like is the best option that someone could take into a solo queue game?
I think depending on what MMR you are, that heavily affects what champions you should be playing. Like Syndra, she looks fantastic. She's god tier at Worlds, but honestly, if your spacing isn't good enough, or your kiting and your management of her orbs late game and mid game, she's not as powerful as a more simplistic champion. So I don't think that's as easy of a question to really answer.
I think a lot of people see Syndra and they hear us always talking about how face roll she is, how stompy her matchups are, and they think that, like, okay, I'll pick up Syndra, but like Alice was saying, you need to have a lot of balls out to have that ult hit really hard. So, you know, you gotta have the confidence to play her. You need to be aggressive in the lane. She's not a champion you can sit back on and just, like, you know, farm for a little bit and have a high impact in the meta. So Syndra's definitely not this kind of, oh, I'll just pick her up and play her a little bit.
Balls out for mid lane victory. Classic Syndra strategies.
Get those balls out, you Syndra mains.
Lance Armstrong wanted to invest into esports, and he just scared people away.
Oh my god.
There's other picks, Lance.
Oh no. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the slightly one-sided quarterfinal stream. We are, of course, breaking down the mid lane, and unfortunately, heavily one-sided. Oh no. LS, no. Look it's RYU. Hey guys, our observers are telling us to focus up. That's a clear sign. You can see RYU opting for the, I think that's the marquee Vladimir skin. Classic choice. Welcome to the skin. I don't know, we're running out of things to talk about, guys. I gotta be honest. If you have a Twitter question, now is the time to get it on the screen. We can make sure that happens for you. Send us your Twitter questions, we'll talk about it. Because right now, unfortunately for the side of ANX, a team that we would be so excited to see win, they are just getting destroyed in the laning phase, and H2K are not giving them any room whatsoever.
Yep.
So, Vitality Shoals at Dr. Iron Fist asks, #AskTheCasters, how can ANX win late game when they have double AP and no real threat to kill RYU?
Double AP?
That,
well, I guess he means Elise.
Oh, we're going to find out if they can kill him. That's a decent engage. Jankos set to get popped now. Kira gets the pick. TP coming in from Odo.
So this is kind of what we were touching on just a little bit about the fact that they have a lot of pick-off potential with this team comp. So that's one of the things that they can try and do in the late game is just find someone a little bit out of position. They have a lot of burst between the Elise and the Syndra, and you have extra CC coming in from almost everyone else on the team. So if they can get that kind of stuff going, it is going to be very good for them. Like the tweet was mentioning, though, Vlad is not the one. You don't want to be focusing the Vlad in these pick-off situations. He's got too much mobility with his summoners, items, pool, general health pool as well. He's just not going to be the target. But you can get onto Odoamne. He's not especially tanky. Right now, Jankos isn't quite there. So they have a couple targets that they can try and go for.
I like that pool is so important that you lifted it twice there, Mark.
I meant his W pool and his health pool.
Double down on the pools here for Vladimir.
Our stream's smart. They know what we're talking about, our viewers.
That's true. They are smart, tuning in for this high-quality content and high-quality potential RYU blue buff steal. Vladimir, happy to have the CDR at this point in the game. Not quite the 40% mark yet. Vander, a little upset that he didn't get it. I think we can safely assume. All right, if you're H2K and you're looking to close this game out as clean as possible, tell me what is going through your heads. What is the next move for you? Is it the Baron buff? What needs to happen?
It's kind of in this like weird mid-game part where like you snowballed really, really hard and you kind of ran out of objectives to do easily. I guess they're going to try and two-man Baron. That's an option, but you're not very tanky and it takes a while to kill the Baron. They don't quite have enough tank or health or damage stats to get it quickly.
Zyra for this?
Yeah, it looks like they're bringing the dual lane over to help join it, and ANX is pretty far away, so they might be able to secure it.
Colin comes out.
Okay, so this is going to be a pretty easy Baron, and I mean, from here, honestly, you can just go 1-3-1 with the Vladimir. No one on ANX is able to actually duel Vlad.
Oh, there's the pool.
He might die here.
Nope.
No, not today.
Follow-up.
No Cocoon. All right, not today.
Ghost, confidence in the sidestep. PvPStejos, no confidence in the ability to land that one. So Odoamne is going to get another tower, and H2K now poised to get something back, or now poised to end the game. We'll look to take an inhibitor here, but ANX are making some moves, are sieging this inhibitor up.
Yeah.
Inhibitor, rather, tower. First tower.
Just to touch on a little bit about what happened there. Well, as we see a random engage by Jankos.
He kicked a cow.
Any personal experience with kicking cows, LS?
What's that? Did you grow up in an area of the world with cows, LS? We know so little about you. Tell me of your days as a boy, LS. Tell me of your days as a young stream man. I don't know, whatever. All right, anyway, ANX continuing to push in the mid lane, and this, as always, is a great opportunity for us to get Twitter questions until the fight breaks out. So, let's see. Fresh Demarin asks, is there a world where Syndra and Gnar swap because of the Spirit Visage? Let's see this fight break out. I want to hit this one, and ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering why we're not going crazy over these fights, it's because they are pretty decided when a team has a 13k gold lead.
So the question about Syndra and Gnar swapping is a little bit peculiar because the second that a tower goes down, lane phase is over. So terms like lane and gank and all that stuff, it just doesn't actually exist. But I do know that, you know, in solo queue, a lot of people get confused with that, which is actually a little bit surprising. I think that the terminologies gank and lane are just removed from the game the second that a tower goes down, and then it just becomes actually like a team setting.
Did you see? So let's say that the laning phase extends. Is it ever an option to swap to deal with an early resistance item? So if you say send an 80 character carry mid to deal with someone itemizing MR. And of course we are watching the game end here. H2K continuing a clean and clinical closeout. They approach a 3-0 here. So is it ever during the laning phase, during what you consider the laning phase, of course, with all towers up, is it ever a viable option to swap to dodge a resistance item?
Maybe in like 2% of cases or something. It's some really obnoxiously low chance thing happening. Other than that, I mean, you should still be able to just farm out the laning phase. I mean, if it's at a point where someone is like 2-0 or 3-0 and they're just obnoxiously fed and they just two-shot you anyway, probably gonna two-shot your top laner or something, or whoever you do send to the mid lane.
There's a bunch of other reasons too, like your teleport being in the middle and not having a TP top. Like those kinds of things become an issue where, like, if you put your Syndra top, what is she gonna do when Jayce goes bottom for a 5-man play? Like, you're just not in a position to react to plays quite right. Hey, Pastry.
Hey. That's us.
Hey.
Welcome back. We waved hi to our other casters briefly there.
But yes, like in the mid game, you can go to some different lane assignments. I think is a better term than like just straight what's your lane. So you sometimes see the 1-3-1 where some non-TP mid like a Ryze will go top, but he has other global options. So you rarely see it where you just split kind of randomly like that. And like LS was saying, it's a totally different game at that point because you should be controlling vision really aggressively. The turret should be down already. You shouldn't be doing that in just normal standard laning.
So we're looking at very, very small set of cases, almost never. Pretty much never, maybe every once in a while, but not going to see it in competitive. Probably not going to see it in most levels of solo queue either. However, looking now at the series, 3-0 H2K, question mark.
Confirm, check mark.
Confirm it.
Yeah.
Got it. Ship it. LS, agree?
Yep.
I mean, the thing that you have to think about is maybe there's some crazy pocket picks. We saw the same strategy twice out of ANX, basically. First game, you can say, oh, is this crazy fluky gank top? We're not going to make that mistake again. But the second time, they just totally got run over again. So I think they need to change it up. And maybe they do something really crazy, catches H2K off guard. But I think that's their only hope.
And as this was a mid lane focus, I want to ask, do we just want Kira to not pick Syndra again?
He can't pilot that champion. Well, I mean, at least not in this matchup he can't. It honestly looks like he's never played the matchup before. His mana control is abysmal. His lane management is atrocious. His positioning in the lane is horrible, and his recall timings are completely off relative to facing a Vladimir.
And it's so sad to hear because you earlier at the start of the stream were like, this guy,
he's fantastic
you said,
on that Victor.
One of those played one of the best Victor games we've seen all tournament, one of the best performances this tournament. Mark, do you have something to add before we talk?
I was going to say, I think Kira individually is fine, but when you put him in this matchup where the H2K is like, fine, take the Syndra, and he kind of needs to take it, then he's clearly failing there. I think we saw him on the Anivia, we saw him on the Victor. He was clearly skilled at those champions. I think he's just a little out of his comfort zone.
Absolutely. But now we're going to send it back to the mainstream. When we return, we'll feature the jungler matchup. The analyst desk, however, is going to take it over from here.
Top side instead, which is more than okay.